Hey guys, it's The Amazing here. So, it's been a while since I actually put my voice out there, but what the heck? I've got a couple projects coming up, and I'm going to start this new series to test feasibility for certain web shooter technologies. And so, we're going to start with sort of a Ben Riley wrist carousel type thing. You'll probably remember this. It often appears like as an efficient way for Spidey to switch out his cartridges. Ben Riley has these cartridges mounted all around his wrist, and there's a motorized mechanism to cause them to rotate into the place where they need to be for him to shoot them. So I thought I would try my hand at that, and basically what I'm going to start out with is, which essentially this is a 3D printed roller bearing. So as you can see, I have these rollers here that I've sanded down and smoothed to the point where they can rotate pretty freely. This one's a little stuck. We can. That's better. So yeah, so I have these rollers, and that will effectively decrease the friction around this surface, so eventually something can slide over it. And I bet you can see where I'm going with this. Eventually this is going to be more of a bracelet shape. Obviously I can't fit this on my wrist right now, but yeah, I think it would be a pretty good proof of concept to see a kind of conveyor belt rotating around this thing. And if you can tell, if you take two of these, I've made them so that they're kind of like Legos. They can be mounted on top of one another. So we can try that just like that, and we will take some screws and fasten them together. That is beautiful. Okay, so these fit together really nicely, and it's a pretty stable configuration. I pretty much just have these screws putting them there, but there's no female thread there. They're just basically expected to form the threads themselves. And I guess I made the hole small enough such that it does a pretty good job of gripping it. Yeah, so as I said, eventually this would be a kind of bracelet. Obviously, it's too small to fit on there now, or I guess more just not the right shape. There's a big problem we're going to need to overcome, where there needs to be a clasp somewhere here, and then also a clasp in the conveyor belt that goes over it. But I guess we can print our conveyor belt and see how that goes. If we were going to just make a normal roller bearing with an inside and an outside, and they can rotate with reduced friction, we would have a part like this. So this would essentially be our belt in red here. You can see I've made this one just 0.5 millimeter thick because we need to conserve some space. But of course we're going to have more of a conveyor belt, so this would have to be flexible. And that would mean that these sections here would be rather flat instead of arced. So this actually would not need that big of a diameter. So we're going to be making this in cheetah. The filament, if you don't remember, I've used that for my Doc Ock tentacle in the past. And the material will be slightly flexible. And so I think it's important to make it as thin as possible. It's also a pretty strong material. And instead of printing it, for instance, if I just wanted to print this part, I would probably print it flat like this. But of course, then the layers are allowed to split apart around the circumference or the equator. And rather what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a shape, unfold it to be flat, and then have some way of fastening it together, but I haven't figured that out yet. So I'm going to do that. So essentially what I've found here is the length of this curve from this point to this point highlighted in blue. So this arc here is 1.44 millimeters, and this length, this straight line distance is 14.753. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. All right, so this is would be the net basically of our belt, the unfolded shape. This 194.316 is 12 times 16.193, which is the sum of the arc and that straight line distance we just measured. So I'm now thinking that this would obviously be very tight, especially after this is extruded 0.5 millimeter this way. And so it's half a millimeter thick, and then it would have to be bent, so it would be quite tight because the inner diameter would be less. It essentially would maintain the shape, or this length, only along its inner diameter as it's being bent, or at least about that much. And let's see, we can try to give it a little bit of slack by maybe adding 1 millimeter or so. Yeah, so let's see how that does. I'm hoping this will still be tight enough. We just want it to roll really nicely around these rollers, and yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and extrude it and see if I can make a clasping shape. Alright, so this is what I've been able to come up with. Essentially my plan right now, just to see how this works, is essentially we're going to do a bit of crude leather working here. I'm going to just have these holes printed in. Hopefully they'll come out okay. And then I'm literally just going to sew it up once it's put around. Obviously, eventually there will have to be some kind of clasp, but as a proof of concept, I think this will work just fine. Alright, so here we have the belt mounted on these rollers, and this belt is a little bit thinner than I expected, but you can see it's fitted on those rollers there, and the rollers do a good job of reducing friction, I feel. No matter how hard I'm pressing to turn this, it takes about the same amount of torque to rotate it, but the belt I think is too thin, so it doesn't really have any structural strength. If I take it off here, you can see making it 0.5 millimeter doesn't seem like the right way to go. I could go for 1 millimeter or even 1.5. I want it to be flexible, obviously, but not this much. Also, you can see I got lazy. I didn't do any sewing. I just melted it together because I figure why spend an hour sewing for a preliminary design. But all in all, I think this is heading in the right direction. That's going to be all for today. These videos are going to be very short, and I hope to get them out pretty much every week. Next time, hopefully, we're going to be able to mount a motor on it and make it spin with electricity, and also change the shape of this so that it can fit around a wrist, and add a clasp system for both the belt and the bearing part. But I was thinking a little bit about this, and say I take a watch band and I mount it around the bearing, to show that I can do a clasp system. And this is also kind of nice because I can make the tension just as much as I want. Let's see here. All right. That's definitely helps that spin around. So yeah, it probably could be something like this next time, but it would be nice if there was a way for the belt and the inner part to move together, which is obviously difficult because they're different parts. So I don't know, maybe I'll figure it out, maybe I won't. But we're gonna get the motor, we're gonna get the clasp, Also, I want to thank Exxon Max for pointing out that the webs keep getting caught on the button. Not exactly the button, but more of the hinges of the trigger. And trust me, I am working on a solution for that. Don't worry. I have a brand new valve that extends the nozzle beyond the trigger. So that should work very well. Believe me, I'm aware of this problem. We had some problems when finishing up shooting Spider-Verse. We had some range problems today, didn't we?
We did. We definitely had some range problems, man, and
performance issues, just not uncommon.
Yeah, happens to all men,
I always like to have a couple projects to work on at once. This will be my sort of independent crusade for now, to come up with these cool technologies. I have a couple other ideas planned for these videos, including one of the biggest problems when it comes to making web shooters, which I don't think I've seen anybody solve yet. So we'll see if we get to that. But yeah, hopefully I'll be back next week with another one of these. In addition to that, Spider-War is coming out, don't worry. Blood and I are doing a lot of editing for that. And the Power Pack is coming out too. I hope you've seen the Human Spiders version of that. That was a project that we worked on together. The legit version will be coming out very soon. Here's a preview for that. I hope to demonstrate all its capabilities in the video. That's why it's kind of taking so long. The Power Pack itself is done. The Carousel web shooter will be perfect for the Power Pack because it will require a power source to move via motor. I'm really excited to do one of these videos every week, but if you want these to get more advanced and more complicated, that means I'm going to require some capital. So feel free to donate to my Patreon, support me. I have a couple benefits for patrons. $1 patrons will get to join my Discord. $5 patrons will get to access a secret drive of STL files. And by the way, $1 patrons will have access to some STL files as well. There is an option for purchasing fully built web shooters with a one-time donation of $125. And yeah, so feel free to hit me up down there. Any bit helps. $1, $5, doesn't matter how small. I appreciate all of my current patron supports: Jeff, Zachary, Woodhurst, Green Ninja, The Arachnids, Christopher Jordan, Nicholas Sykes, Caleb Choice, and Spider Noah. You guys have really helped me out a lot, and I super duper appreciate it. So I will see you guys hopefully next week, and stay safe out there and stay amazing.